Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of Next Level Change Success. My name is Therese Perez and I am the founder of myvirtualchangemanager.com. Before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm recording on Tharawal country and pay my respects to the traditional owners and custodians on the land on which I am recording and to elders both past, present and emerging. So today I want to talk about change frameworks. And I want to emphasize that change is more than just a framework. Many people, of course, who are looking to get into change management are keen to understand a change model. I think that there are various frameworks out there, but when looking at tools and getting the tools that you can use in organizations, there comes a time when after learning the tools, you're going back to your role and you're thinking, oh, okay, how do I apply these? Many times because you have, as a change practitioner, a range of tools, you shouldn't be limited to just one particular framework. There are different type of tools that serve different purposes, and sometimes going into an organization, you need to read the room around their appetite for documentation. And you might do the documentation yourself, which I do encourage you to do just for your own thinking process. But just understanding how to communicate that when you're in organizations that aren't necessarily change mature, which don't have a change practice, which haven't really formed up a PMO, project management office, and who not really understanding the complementary disciplines. And sometimes that might mean that change managers go in and you're not focused just on change. Might be a broader requirement, and you need to be up for that if you're going into small to medium-sized organizations. When you're looking at larger organizations and corporations, typically that is when you have the benefit of a change management office, a change framework that you need to apply within that organization. So that's something that your stakeholders are used to. But if you're in a small to medium-sized organization, then you just use the tools that you necessarily need to at that point in time and really focus on relationships and working with and providing the stakeholders with what they need at that point in time. So why is change more than just a framework? And after many, many years of implementing change in different ways across different industries, different types of change, tech change, process change, policy change, program change, portfolio management, a change management office, I have had the real privilege to be able to go into such a range of organizations. And I think the common element is that the difference when it comes to change is about your ability to have that genuine curiosity about the organization, to be able to build relationships, to understand the formal network that sits in an organization and the formal processes and utilize those, but also understand the informal social network that exists, which can be even more powerful than the formal network depending upon what organization you go into. And so it really comes down to who you are being, how you are showing up. And I talk about this a lot because at My Virtual Change Manager, in our training and our courses, the two things we really emphasize is your approach and who you're being in that. And that's not often talked about when you're looking at accreditation courses. In accreditation courses, they talk about the psychology of change, and they'll talk about the change framework themselves, the tools that you have, the challenges you'll come across. And really, I'm looking to support you as an individual because how you approach it, your own learning, how you feel at purpose in relation to change, it makes a difference. And the respect for hierarchies is really important within organizations because it will help you. It means that you won't get the noise. And then the focus really and the centeredness that you can have on really good delivery will mean, and adoption, delivery obviously in the change context being adoption, and the way that you're really focused on that people side of change will make the difference to the people who are impacted. And that's what we're all about, is making sure that we realize that change matters because your people matter. So by working with you and running the trainings that we do, and also the coaching sessions that we do after our training or incorporated with our training sessions, they're really focused on your approach. And if you're finding difficult stakeholders, you're finding it difficult to get the airtime, part of it is around how you might choose your battles. Feedback that you get is not something to be threatened by. It's something to welcome, listen to, consider the drivers behind that, seek out and be genuinely curious about that so that you can grow as a person. It could be something around the way you're approaching the conversation. You might be coming across as being very particular and perfectionist, or you might be coming across as someone who wants to control everything versus really working and co-designing with the business itself around the change plan, the change delivery. And through my career, I've absolutely had those scenarios. Like, it's not all lollipops and rainbows when it comes to change. It's quite a difficult discipline to navigate in organizations. But the one thing I do is I don't have to prove what change is there for. I work with and understand, what do the stakeholders want? What do they need? How can I help them through my change discipline? And sometimes that might mean I blur a little bit of the lines around my role. However, I do that so that I can get genuine connection, buy-in, and it's part of who I am, is to be service to others. Over years, though, I have developed the ability to set up healthy boundaries so that I'm not doing it to the detriment of myself. And I've learned a lot of self-awareness techniques so that it's a healthy, constructive experience versus burnout, feeling at times bullied, and making sure that, I just get the job done in spite of all of the resistance that you can get at times when people don't necessarily know what it is that you do nor understand it. So there might be, of course, stakeholders where it'd be appropriate to say, look, this is the process we're going to be going through. This is what I need from you. And I think sometimes that's really great to get some, especially for your key stakeholders, is to get that shared understanding, and so they understand what it is that you do. And then also ask them, so what would you expect? What do you need? How do you want me to communicate with you? This is typically what I do, but I just want to see if there's anything else that you need or want. And most people are really welcoming to that conversation. So it's not just a one-way directive kind of, this is how I work and this is what I do. It does make the difference, especially if you're in a pinch when it comes to rolling out the change and you need some support. You'll have the same people put their hand up and say, yeah, we can help out. What do you need? And so these things are all really important. It's not just the process that you're going through, of course. And even I've heard change practitioners get irate at saying change is a process. Well, it is. Like, that's a reality, because everything's a process, whether it be in the area of finance, strategy, service delivery, everything is a process, and change is no different. The challenge, however, is that understanding on how to get engagement, how to work with people, co-design, empower people to change. If they don't have information that they need, they're never going to be empowered to change. Being able to facilitate, not pushing too hard. And you definitely learn this throughout your career of implementing change, of moments where you realize, I'm pushing and I'm trying to push this change through, or I'm trying to force something forward, and realizing sometimes it's in the letting go that actually more can eventuate, because you're creating this space. You're just giving sometimes activities time to breathe and discussions time to breathe so that you can move forward. Life is not all about push. And these are the things that you learn about yourself, about your dynamics with people. And if you're finding that there's some really frustrating conversations or frustrating interactions with other people, I talked about this in another episode of Next Level Change Success, about unpack the beliefs that you have that is driving the conversation, which may be eliciting that frustration or having that frustration expressed to you, and the difficulty you're finding there, and then consider how you might shift that belief for it to be more empowering, for it to have a different response, take a different approach, not just the stock standard, I'll do the same thing that I've been doing for the last 5 meetings of demanding that this person delivers on the training, for example, and where is the training, and then escalate it. Maybe it's a coffee conversation with the individual just to check in with them, see what's going on. How can we work better together? How can I help you to achieve what you need to? These type of conversations can help from a teaming perspective and can get an entirely different response, an entirely different relationship that can be formed as part of that. So if you've gone and done a course and you've come back to the workplace and you're like, okay, I'm not even sure where to start, always remember planning. Start with a plan, start to look at your impacts, make sure you assess those impacts. That's the process, but there's a forming of relationships that's really important. The listening that you have is really important and makes a difference. The ability to flex on what you're getting feedback on, the ability to highlight an ambassador for the people, yet also know where you're going to be able to get some more feedback or some different decisions made, and then pick your battles. Know when actually this is a non-negotiable from the leader's perspective. So whilst I've raised it, I'm going to move on. I've documented it. I'm going to move on so that we can get a good, as best a change outcome as possible. So just a couple of things to consider on your next change, a couple of things to consider around the approach that you're taking. And if you've never sat back and thought about, well, who am I in this role of introducing change? Who am I being? Whether you're a project manager, whether you're a change manager, whether you're a subject matter expert in your field and you're really looking to affect change across the organization or across another team, if you're a people leader and how you lead, I don't think enough times we sit back and reflect and ask the question of what type of leader do I want to be? What type of change practitioner do I want to be? And not just around, I want to be an excellent one, I want to be high performing. This is actually about how do I want to be known and how do I want to show up? Because it's really, really important. It will essentially be your brand within an organization, but I think brand externalizes it too much. So it's just about who you are being and who you are showing up as. And what have you learnt in the past around that? And where's some feedback you've received that maybe you haven't necessarily listened to or considered about how you might change your behavior? What belief is driving that initial behavior? These are the layers you want to go into, because if you're lining up a sense of purpose with what you do, which is where we're the most engaged, then they're the logical questions that you would ask, a reflection that you would take and consider how it is going, whether it be in your home life as a result of the stress you are experiencing as part of your work life. Those type of things, you've got to bring these worlds together because you're the same person who's showing up. And if you can take the little step back, have a breath, have that pause for consideration, you might want to amplify and think, okay, well, I really achieve well. I really have got some great relationships. I really do make some really great change across the organization. Well, how can I amplify that? Should I be looking at a leadership role if you're not already in one? If you're really finding that you're finding your centeredness and you have a lot to offer, consider about how you might be selling yourself short there. But if there's also areas that you really want to personally develop because you've been getting a lot of feedback, and whether it's in a change context or just general business as usual context, there might be some things for you to develop so that you can enjoy this journey more when you're showing up to your workplace. Couple of things to consider. And I did talk about the fact that I will be addressing this more and more, and that we are blending this into our courses and courses that will soon be available. So come to myvirtualchangemanager.com, sign up for our newsletter so that you can stay informed around the progress. So at the moment, I'm writing furiously in the background. I'm developing content. I'm kind of testing it with some trusted people so that I can bring a good training and an all-encompassing training to you in the future. So stay informed by coming to myvirtualchangemanager.com and sign up if change and the handling of change, how you can facilitate change, how you can measure change, how you can reflect on who you're being as change arrives in your organization, which it is always happening in organizations, then sign up, stay in touch. And I hope this episode has given you some food for thought and that you have a wonderful day. Thanks for listening.